Hi everyone, welcome to Math 7 Week 7 volume of Prisms. So volume is the amount of space inside of a three-dimensional figure, okay? And it's measured in cubic inches. So basically your units are going to be cubed. And there's going to be two types of prisms that we're going to talk about. The first one's going to be rectangular, so meaning that all the faces are going to be rectangles. The second one is going to be a triangular prism, and a triangular prism means that you're going to have a triangle as one of the faces. So looking here, how we find the volume of a rectangular prism is we just basically multiply all the lengths together. Okay, the length, the width, times the height. So they said that the length is the distance from, basically it's the front part, the width is how fat it is, and how high it is the height. You can kind of mix and match those with a rectangular prism. They're the easier of the two. So I'll call this my length, this my width, and this is my height. So my volume is to multiply length times width times height all together, and I get 30 meters cubed. Then for the next one, I'll call this my length, my width, and my height. Once again, they're kind of interchangeable for these. So as long as you're multiplying all of the numbers together, you should get the right answer. So 5 times 4 times 10 is 200 centimeters cubed. And then my last one here, we'll say length, height, and width. So multiply length times width times height. And that's going to give me a volume of 36 feet cubed. Now with a triangular prism, you multiply the three numbers together, but then you have to multiply by 1/2. And the base is actually the bottom of the triangle. That's what the base is. The height is how tall the triangle is from top to bottom. And then the length they're calling is the distance between the two triangles. So do you see how you kind of have a triangle here at the front and you have a triangle here at the back? The distance between those two triangles, they're calling that the length. Okay, so we'll use the L for that. So if we look at our first one, okay, volume is equal to 1/2 base times height times the length. So the base and the height I'm going to get from my triangle. So the base is the bottom, which is 6, and the height is 4. So 1/2 6 times 4, and then the length is the distance between these two triangles. So the distance or the space between those two triangles is 12, which means I'm not going to use 5 at all. Go ahead, put that right in my calculator. So 0.5 times 6 times 4 times, what was the other measurement? 12. It's going to give me 144. So this is 144 meters cubed. All right, next one. Here is my triangle right here. So the bottom part of my triangle is my base. My height is how tall it is. And then the distance between these two triangles, front and back, that's my length. And the distance between there is 4. I'm not using the 14 at all. So my volume is equal to 1/2 times the base times the height times the length. So 1/2 times the base is 5, height is 12, length is 4. So I can go into my calculator. I'll do 0.5 times 5 times 12 times 4. Gives me 120 centimeters cubed. All right, we've got 2 more here to do. So I've got my triangle here. Okay, so here's my triangle. The bottom triangle is the base, how tall the triangle is the height, and then the distance between these two triangles, which is the amount right here, that's my length. So volume is 1/2 times base times height times length. So 1/2 times 7 times 3 times 6. So instead of using 1/2, I'll use 0.5. So 0.5 times 7 times 3 times 6. 7 times 3 times 6 gives me 63. Okay, so that is 63 yards cubed. All right, looking at the next one, this is my triangle here. The bottom part of the triangle is the base. How tall it is the height. And then the distance between these two triangles is 22. So that's my length. I'm not using 5 at all. So volume is 1/2 times the base times the height times the length. 1/2, the base is 6. The height right here is 4. And the length is 22. So 0.5 times 6 times 4 times 22 gives me an answer of 264 inches cubed. All right, working backwards. You will have to work backwards for some of these volume problems, especially in the IXL. So not necessarily for the homework, but for the IXL. So to work backwards, what you have to do is plug everything in that you know into the equation and then divide to figure out what you don't know. So for these two, these are rectangular prisms. So for rectangular prisms, you're going to use length times width times height for our formula. So knowing that volume equals length times width times height, I'm going to plug the volume in, which is 210. The length is 5, width, and then I don't know the height. That's what I'm looking for. So 5 times 14 times the height I don't know. Multiply the two numbers together that I do know. So 5 times 14. 5 times 14 gives me 70. So can't color in highlighter, 210 equals 70H. Then divide both sides by your multiplication, so by 70. So when I divide that, it gives me that my height is 3 centimeters. Okay, that's my height. And I can check it by doing 5 times 3 times 14. It'll give me 210. All right, next one. They're looking for the width here. So volume equals length times width times height. Okay, so we'll call this my length and call this my height. So volume equals 7 times my W times my height of 9.5. So I'm going to multiply the numbers that I know together. So I know 7 times 9.5. That's going to give me 66.5. So 66.5 W. Plug in the volume. The volume's all the way up here at the top at the directions, 186.2. Then I have to get the W by itself, so I'm going to divide by 66.5, by 66.5. So 186.2 divided by 66.5 gives me 2.8. So my width is equal to 2.8 inches. Only difference between the rectangular prisms and the triangle prisms is that you have to remember that 1/2 for the triangle. So for this one, so since this is a triangular prism, I'm going to use the formula volume equals 1/2 base times height times length. So volume, which in this case is 150, because they gave that to me up at the top. My volume is 150 is equal to 1/2. My base, I don't know. Remember, the base is the bottom part of the triangle. They want me to use a U, so I'll plug a U in there. The height is how tall the triangle is. So that's 6, and then 10 is my other measurement. Multiply what I do know. I know the 1/2, I know the 6, and I would know the 10. So if I go to my calculator and I do 1/2 times 6 times 10, it gives me 30. So 30U equals 150. Divide by 30. You get U is equal to 5 centimeters. Okay, so basically you multiply everything you know together and just divide your volume by it. The only difference here is that with the triangular prisms, you want to make sure that you use the 1/2. All right, so for this one, volume equals 1/2 base height length. Volume is 105. So 105 equals 1/2. Base is 6. Height, I don't know. Length is 3.5. So multiply everything I know together. So I know the 1/2, the 6, and the 3.5. So I can go into my calculator. 0.5 times 6 times 3.5 gives me 10.5. So 105 equals 10.5H. Divide both sides by 10.5. And it gives me my height of 10, I believe, but I'm going to check. 105 divided by 10.5 gives me 10 centimeters. All right, we're going to do a few more practice together in the live event, so I'll talk to you guys very soon.